All right, so I slept on it and I hated it. I didn't like it at all. So I'm gonna show you what I. All right, so the spacer, I hated it. I did not like it at all. I don't have it out here, but I mean, it was almost a 1/4 inch gap between the fiberglass and the aluminum hull. And so, like I said, I slept on it and I wondered if I would be able to get away with not using it. And it turns out you can. So long story short, I think it'll be a much better iteration of what we've got going on. And now I've got this thing bolted in up to where I'm going to make this little skid plate. And that's the 8-inch mark right here. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna scrap the idea of having that spine go up and over. I'm just gonna not even think about that at the moment. And I also hated the idea of having the plate come all the way out 6 inches on both sides just to cover up this old drain plug hole. So I'm gonna cover this up by itself. And my plate up here, I think I'm gonna come on the outside of this row of rivets so I don't have to worry about those. And I'm gonna come back that 8-inch distance from here. And I think what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to finesse a V. I don't know if it's gonna pick up on camera, but the fiberglass is shaped to where it'll kind of, I guess, roll the water down into this tunnel a little bit better. So I'm gonna make my plate come from about right here, this corner, all the way down to this V, and then I'm gonna come in, up the V, over, and same thing on the other side. I'm just gonna come on the outside of these washers, past all these rivets, up to, say, somewhere in there. And I'll get that going, and let's see what we can do. So I tried to get smart with that protractor. Bad idea. So I just took some basic measurements. I went 16 inches out on both sides. I found my center of what my width is going to be, and it was like 10.5 inches or so, a little bit over that. Found center of it. These two red lines right here are where my tunnel is going to be. So this V shape in blue is going to match the V shape of the hole, and then it's going to go over on each side and back in, just taper back in a little bit so we don't have any sharp corners. And I may change this a little bit to where I have more of a flat going across, so it's not such a hard angle right in here. I'm going to get it cut up, and that's the next thing you'll see. I think this is how I want to design the front of this plate here. These two and these two will be drilled out through existing rivet holes. I've got a spot on either side for one extra, which would be these two. Not sure what I'm gonna do with that yet. I think I want to put one in the center, so whenever I go to put this tailpiece back on there, I'm going to get some smaller washers. All these are zinc, but they're cheaper. I'm going to get some stainless, and they're going to be a 1/2 inch smaller on outside diameter. I think I want to put one in the center there, so whenever I put the spine back over it and everything's bolted down, that washer will be right in the middle of that A-frame there. And then once I have that bolted down, I can decide if I want to put one on either side real close or how I want to do it. I don't really know how much it's going to resist whenever I go to bolt this thing in. My plate here is curved, so it's going to put up a little bit of a fight whenever I go to bolt these down. Whenever you're working with something like this, you always want to work from the inside out. So I'm going to start with these two on either side, outside bolts, and I'm going to move up to these. And then once I have these snugged, I'm going to figure out if I want to put one here or two, or just one, then the one in the middle, and then mirror it. So here's the profile after tightening those bolts down. Those carriage bolts still need to get seated all the way, but it is snug where it is right now. So I drilled off a little bit, so that's gonna tweak my OCD just only a lot. Whatever. But now I'm gonna have to go in and do some finagling how I want to try to add this piece back on. So I'll do some thinking on that and I'll get back with you. So I've taken a look at it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a coping saw and I'm going to cut where these 4 lines are, so I have the thinnest cut line possible. And whenever I do cut these, they'll be bent and kind of open a little bit at all those joints. I'll take some 5200 marine sealant, and I will use that 5200 to glue this section to my skid plate and to seal off in between those cuts. That way I don't have to drill anything extra. I don't have to worry about rivets getting stuck, or not getting stuck, but being in the way whenever I go to tighten this thing down and putting a hole, putting pressure on the fiberglass, or even back on the skid plate pushing up. And I'm also thinking that I'm going to have a piece of aluminum that's going to be riveted in to this upper section, and it's going to be on the top here, riveted in, and it's going to follow along all the way up top here, and I'm going to rivet in these sections before it gets glued. But that way I won't have to worry about if I do hit a big rock or anything else, and this is just glued in. Hopefully having that little band right here will keep me from losing this piece. Maybe. At least that's the idea. And I will do something with this piece too. I may take a pie slice out of the top here, to where whenever I'm using that little band, is what I'm going to call it, kind of ramp it up. I don't know. We'll figure that out later. Well, I really only needed the last 3 cuts. This first one doesn't move at all. It's alright though. But I think it's gonna do what I was wanting it to do. So this is a scrap piece off of the skid plate whenever I cut it out, and it's looking like it's gonna be the perfect width for my idea here. Now it's gonna be on the inside of this spine, but what I'm wanting, or what I'm thinking, is I'm gonna have like 2 rivets in this section, 2 rivets here, 1, 2, and then, I don't know, 3 or 4 up through here. But that'll keep everything kind of held together. And then this will be glued, this little flange on each side, it'll be glued down to the skid plate once I get there. But for now, I think this is gonna start coming all off. And then I think I'm gonna strip the boat, strip all this paint off. Psych! I got my new washers in. That's gonna be the new size. They're gonna be 1/2 inch smaller in diameter. And because of that, I'm going to add a 3rd washer. I'm gonna add third bolt. 3rd bolt. I'll say 3rd. I'm gonna add 2 extra bolts, 1 right here and 1 right here. This is going to be my quick and dirty way of setting a carriage bolt square head into aluminum plate. Start out and drill out your plate for whatever diameter your thread size is. Then take a bolt and chop it down just enough to where you have a little bit of your threaded section and your square head is all that's left. Take your die and set it on top of your plate, and it'll locate, self-locate, all by itself. Then you take a jack, car jack, a wooden block, and a hitch or a steel bumper or something that's really heavy. Lift your jack up, put a little bit of pressure on your die, and my press won't apply enough force all by itself, even if you have both the tires of your press off the ground. So you got to weigh about 220 pounds, get on the bumper, and give it one good jump, and that ought to send her home. Take a look here. Oh yeah, isn't that about perfect? So in order to get my stamped hole to match on my boat, I'm going to lay the skid plate over the boat, drop my carriage bolt down, and you won't be able to see it, but on the opposite side I'll have an old wrench as a spacer and a washer, and I'm going to tighten that mess down, and it's going to pinch through the boat as you tighten the nut down, is the concept. So that last clip, I was transferring the orientation of the carriage bolts from the plate to the boat so that they're clocked the same way. And now I'm going to go ahead and set up and finish it out through the rest of the hole. Alright, well, now we got a stripped down boat, and I wire wheeled the other side, so now I'm going to wire wheel the inside of the boat, and then I think it's going to be time to put everything in, seal it in, and assemble. Maybe. We'll see.